Hey, what's going on, y'all? The topic of today is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo, and just the perception of him as a player. Going in here into what has been his seventh season in the league, and I mean, most likely, what's going to be, you know, most likely the season's over, based on what happened here in 2020 with the virus. So we can discuss things. Hopefully there's some sort of postseason. But one thing that I wanted to discuss regarding Giannis, who was en route to his second straight MVP, is conversations start to get a little bit more intense. It's for a player who lost last season in the Eastern Conference Finals, got outplayed by Kawhi Leonard. The questions are going to start to mount, just like they did with LeBron, who at the same age right now, 25, failed to win a championship on a team that was the number one seed. And, he eventually left to Miami, eventually won championships, but the noise was crazy around LeBron. It was more so of a clutch gene, can he get it done thing, which that's a whole nother conversation. I don't think that's really the conversation with Giannis quite yet. But there's definitely conversation about there's definitely skepticism around his ability to do certain things. Now, there's not skepticism with the Bucks. They're the best team in the league by far. They're, offensive and defensive categories, they are elite, and they're led by him. And his production is elite, right? So I mean, like the skepticism of him is a little more of a player's player skepticism, whereas questioning his skill set. And this was in February, a James Harden interview with Rachel Nichols. This kind of heated up a little bit when, James Harden said, if I was 7 foot tall and I could just, I'm paraphrasing here, but he was basically like, he's just tall. He's just tall. And it was, and let me be very clear. James Harden doesn't believe that. James Harden knows that Giannis Antetokounmpo is extremely skilled. He's saying that, he's throwing a jab at Giannis because Giannis threw jabs at him. And that's the way it should go. James Harden should feel like he's the best player in the world, and quite frankly, nobody could mess with him. So, on a smaller scale, a lot of people believe that. A lot of people think or are questioning his ability to put a team on his back and kind of score in more isolation situations. His ability, he got outplayed by Kawhi Leonard in the conference finals last season, which is fine, and it happens. It's one series. It doesn't mean he's less of a player. But there's a kind of a question, whereas, well, for a guy that's not a great outside shooter, the question is, well, can he create his own shot in a playoff series, in an advanced playoff series past the first few rounds, where a defense is supposedly locked in, focused, game plan to stop you. So there's a lot of questioning of Giannis' ability to do that, and I want to discuss that. But the first thing I really want to discuss is the skill question, like the whole he's just tall and athletic thing. And I think some people out there may be really confused. Like, I saw things on social media, some people who actually believe that, which I don't think James Harden believes. And, the real purpose of this video right now is to just kind of break down Giannis' skill set, what he brings to the table from a trainer's, coach's perspective and from a player's perspective, not so much from a production perspective, which, we can delve into that a little bit as well. But really the main focus of this video is going to be what he can do as a player, his skill set on the floor in those terms. So, we're going to get into that now. And here we go. So the first thing I want to highlight, before we get into any of his offensive skill is obviously defensively, he's a monster, right? It's not just offensively. Defensively in transition, he can get out here. He can chase you down. He can block your shot. And I mean, this is Zion Williamson here. The other play was Jason Tatum. We're going to see here, this is Blake Griffin. This is a pick and roll situation, but the ability to chase you down and block your shot and make this spectacular play makes him already an impactful defender. But what really makes him really great, besides guarding the ball, which he's pretty good at, is his ability to help off the ball. Here's a situation against the Grizzlies over the last few seasons where he can rotate and really help. And the Bucks have good interior defenders. They have the Lopez brothers there, but Giannis gives them another level if the Lopez brothers are put in PNR or they're out of the game, where he can break things up. Here he is completely breaking up a Bam Adebayo bucket on a pick and roll, where the big on his team was activated defensively. So, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you saw that just those plays were against great players. Again, that was a Blake Griffin, Bam Adebayo, Jason Tatum, Zion Williamson. So he's super athletic, and the things he can do and make an impact defensively, getting in the passing lanes, chase down blocks, the big spectacular plays you see in highlight reels. But again, dude is a very good help defender, and I think that's a skill too. Like that's something we have to put into perspective here. That's not just height, and that's not just length, and that's not just athleticism. That's timing. That's understanding point of verticality and not fouling. That's instincts. You know what I mean? Being able to rotate on time and make those plays, communicating back there when you have to. That's a skill. That's a skill. So it's one thing we can't overlook when we're talking about the skills of a player. I know, you go to the park and we just talk about offense, but he's an all NBA defender for a reason. All right, so now we can get to what everybody wants to see. Offense. He can pass the ball, drive, and kick. Okay? He can pass the ball in transition. He can lead your break. Okay? He can pass out of the high post. And it's plays like this that make me feel like, well, passing the cutters out of the high post, you can use him like the Lakers use Anthony Davis. Passing to cutters out of the low post. All right? He can swing the ball and pass to shooters out of the low post. I'm just showing you one play of each, but these are things he does routinely. He can throw touch post entry passes. Makes me feel like you can use him in high-low situations in terms of, and this is more of a ball screen, but again, you look at his skill set and his ability to make touch passes and see the floor. Obviously, his length helps with that. Makes me believe that you can use him, in the high post as a passer, in a low post as a passer. If you were the Golden State Warriors, how good would those post splits, those screens off ball look like with him in the post, just like with Draymond Green? If you were the Lakers, the way they run their offense in a high post through Anthony Davis at times, how good would Giannis look there, creating for others and doing those things? And as a passer, we'll get into this later as far as, in ball screen situations, his ability to create for others, whether he has the ball in his hands or not, he can hand the ball off too. The way he rolls to the basket, you can use him like the Denver Nuggets use Nikola Jokic. So, I'm just trying to show you his skill set and what he brings to the table. And passing is one of those things. All right, guys. So now we're going to talk about Giannis' scoring in isolation and transition situations. Okay, here's a windmill finish. All right, his ability to get out and do this windmill finish, kind of throw the ball overhead and do that is something he does. Obviously, he can just dribble, drive right past you. Okay, now here's a spot up shot, which he's improved at over time. And here is a pump fake to a load step. That's not easy to do. There's the dish. So once he gets that three going, he's a player who, if you close out, obviously, he cannot just score. He can blow by. He can pass. Here he is, kind of a ball screen situation, but a pull-up too. He's improved a lot as a shooter. He can do these things. Okay, here's a step back shot. A little bit clunky, but he's getting better. He's 25 years old, and I don't want to break down all the numbers like crazy here. Okay, but here's just this season, where he is. As a mid-range shooter, he doesn't take a lot of them, and that's been the thing that's changed from him from when he was a younger player. But you see that 16 feet plus shot and that 10 to 16 feet, those are mid-range shots. And, these are both career highs. Okay, he's shooting 43% on shots 10 to 16 feet. That's not phenomenal, all right, especially for a low-volume guy. It's not great. The same thing on 6 to 23, but it's improvement. All right, it's improvement to the point where it's close to average for a player of his stature. Like it's to the point where if he had to take a shot like that for a game, late in a game situation, if that's what the defense is giving him, like he could drain it, he can make it. Okay, just for perspective, LeBron James hasn't shot over 40% at both of these spots in the last 3 full seasons he's played, not including his first Lakers season. Um, so like last season, Giannis shot 40% on shots 16 to 23, and he shot 33% on shots 10 to 16. This season he's here. He's here. Which is marked improvement. Back in 2017-18, he was actually taking way more shots and shooting in the mid 30s on these shots, which was just not efficient. So you see him playing smarter, but the important thing here is to show that he can drain this shot. And he's no Kevin Durant. He's not going to shoot over 50% from mid-range, but he's not far off from, say, Kawhi Leonard, who's a better mid-range shooter percentage-wise in the mid-40s on shots like this, and he takes more shots. I'm not saying he's there yet, or he will even get there. But you're talking about the best of the best. If he ends up not being the shooter in the mid-range that Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard are, for as far as big wing players and ball handlers and big men, he's still pretty good at the percentages that he's at. Okay. So moving along here, isolation, he could spin on you. He could drive by and spin on you. This is something that he likes. This is more of a high post face up, but we'll call it an ISO. Finger roll off that. Retreat dribble. Spin move. You guys gotta understand this is a 7-foot guy. So, that gets used against him as far as, he can just dunk over. Well, this stuff is stuff that we see guards. A lot of guards don't even do on a routine basis. All right, my man has a Euro step as well. Here's a right-hand finish out of a Euro step. It's Giannis a few years back. He has an inverted Euro step. As you can see here, he does an inverted Euro step to a 1-2 finish. The ball's in his right hand. He jabs with his left foot. And he gets an inverted Euro step going. He can dribble drive, half spin, give you a fadeaway off a jump stop. And then he can set that up to his counters, which is an up and under off the same move. And we'll see more counters as we go, especially in the low post. And, I kind of left this for last in the ISO situations, but if you think he can't beat somebody one-on-one, and again, this is Jason Tatum he's beating, how can you teach a setup? We call it a setup crossover because of the way he loads his hips and gets his butt down and gets wide on his cross. And this is just kind of for fun, but it kind of reminds me of somebody who's really known for phenomenal crossovers, right? So we can see Giannis beat you on a spin move. We can see Giannis beat you with a Euro step. He has go-to moves. He can jump stop and counter his spin move with a half spin with an up and under. He can flat out one-on-one break you down with a crossover. Now, to be honest, isolation is kind of his weakest thing in terms of what the numbers say. He's a little bit above average in terms of, according to NBA stats, in terms of he's above 50 percentile. But for somebody who attempts so many ISO shots, he's not amongst the best. So that could be one fair criticism. But again, the purpose of the video is to show that for a 25-year-old 7-foot dude, he's actually absurdly crazy, dumb skilled. So that's really what we have to put in perspective here for anybody who doesn't really understand that. Yeah, and here's my favorite part of his entire game. And here's a left low post face up, right foot jab. And there's the same thing with a left foot jab on a catch into a runner. Giannis is a really good post player, man. Here he is on the block. Okay, a jump stop to a mini hook. He can go into a turnaround fadeaway. This is all left block stuff, and this is all moves that he can get. He can get this shot off anytime. Okay. Here he goes again with a half spin into a fadeaway. So he'll fake the spin and he'll fake the other turnaround jump shot. And then again, counters. He'll pump fake and step in. So again, he just did that. He just did he just did a turnaround jumper over his shoulder. Then he did a half spin shot in the middle. And then he did a half spin to a jump shot in the middle to a step in. Okay. And then he can also spin all the way around and go up and under on you. The bag is quite hefty. The bag is quite hefty. Here he is on the right block now, rip through, blow by. Same thing. He'll face you up. Here is another face up, a drop off move. This is against Blake Griffin. And, you got to notice that he crosses over and jabs with his left foot. This is not a regular crossover. This is a drop off. This is tough to do, man. This is stuff that a lot of NBA guards don't even do on a regular basis, or even if at all. Okay. So, he'll face you up. Here he is again on the right block, back to the basket, and just a regular little Dirk fade. So looking at the whole bag in the post, I mean, we just showed you here, on the left block and the right block, he can turn around, fade away. On the left block, he can strong side, Dirk fade away on the right block. He could jump stop to the middle, give you a mini hook. Okay. He could spin move and finish. He could spin move and after this, he could set that up and go up and under. He could half spin, fade away for a middle jump shot. He could half spin, fake a fadeaway, step in. All right. He could flat out face you up and boogie on you. Right. Like he could flat out face you up and boogie on you. We already showed you that he can cross over. He can rip through. He can jab step, but he can also do a drop off cross. I mean, the dude, he's a load on the block. And just to put this, fully in perspective, and we'll do it more at the end. But as a low post player, he's elite. You know what I mean? And we don't necessarily talk about that enough. You know what I mean? As far as the fact that he's one of the best low post players in the game. And we don't discuss that in terms of his scoring repertoire. Like that's not a skill. Like skills are just, taking over a game from the perimeter and double cross, mid range, step backs. All right, so it's pretty much the last thing. How could we not discuss what he can do in a pick and roll? We'll discuss the numbers later, but here he is as a pick and roll ball handler. As a 7-foot dude, people are generally going to try to go under that, right? Because he's not, he's an improved shooter, but he's not a great shooter. And people can go under all they want. He can just get downhill. You're going to sag off so much, he's just going to dunk on you. And yeah, he can handle it in the pick and roll and create for himself, obviously. And then he's just playing with people now. And this is just like, I don't necessarily blame you if you don't think he's like super skilled. I just think you just don't watch. Because most guards in the league never do this in a 10-year career. Behind the back, hedge, split to a Euro step finger roll. And that's the type of jelly that guards dream of having. Right, here he is, half spin, Euro step, and now he in the air switching hands to a driving kick. Again, spin move, Euro step, up in the air, switch hands from right to left, and driving kick. This is a circus act. This is, again, I just don't think you're watching if you don't think dude is like super skilled. Here he goes with what he's doing as a screener. And this is what I was saying earlier. If he was on the Nuggets and Coach Malone used him like they use Nikola Jokic, he could be great. And this guy, his skill set really could match. You can run offense through him, high post, outside of 3-point line, high handoff, high ball screen as a roller or as a creator, and he could do a whole lot for you in that area of the game. So as a screener, obviously his length, his athleticism, he could roll, and that could cause a lot of gravity, and that could really suck in the defense on its own merit. So, just covering Giannis' skill set, man. Pick and roll as a screener and as a roller. Dude's really good. Dude's really, really good. Just to recap this, I just want to overall, there's no debate in his greatness. He's basically the only player in the modern era since the 3-point line entered the league 40 years ago to ever in a season score over 29 points a game, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. Wilt Chamberlain and Elgin Baylor did it a long time ago. And Giannis is more efficient than them. They just played more minutes back then. But he's obviously a very productive player. He's the best player in the league to me, and he's the player who deserves MVP to me if they're going to give that award for this season. He leads the league in player efficiency rating. He leads the league in box plus minus. He's first in win shares per 48. He's second in VORP to James Harden. These are just some advanced numbers, but I think they may not tell the whole story. But when you look at all of them, and he continues to be either leading or top 2 in most of them, then you have to kind of think this guy's probably pretty good. Even player impact estimate, which is NBA.com's advanced stat, he's first, right? So he's the best player in the world in terms of what the numbers are telling us, right? But that's not everything, right? That's not everything. There's a reason why Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's numbers were bonkers last postseason too, but there's something to that. There's something to, can this player do this consistently, and can he get a bucket when he needs to get a bucket? But, the purpose of the video was to show that this dude is actually insanely skilled. He actually has a guard skill set for a 7-footer with an improving shot. So, he's shooting over the last couple of years, he's shooting over 30% from 3 now. And this year he's shooting 4.8 threes a game. So he's shooting more threes. He's 25 years old. Obviously he may never be a great shooter, but he could be a 3-point shooter that could keep you honest. And and a mid-range shooter as well, which we discussed earlier. For the first time in his career, he's shooting over 40% consistently from mid-range, the mini mid-range and the long mid-range. And I think that's the limitation people see. And again, to be fair, and this is just to finish this out here, he's 7th in the league in isolation attempts, and he's actually above the 50. He's above average as far as NBA.com stats and the percentile he's in. He's above 50. But among elite guys, he's not good. I mean, he's just not on the level of LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard, and others that are great isolation players. I got to give you that. You know what I'm saying? But I do think the skill set can't really be questioned. I mean, he can off the dribble set up and cross you over. He can spin move on you. And again, we showed when he gets downhill, he can Euro step. He has different finishes. He can get in the block. But as a pure ISO threat, the numbers just aren't there. But I don't see why with his skill set that doesn't continue to improve a little bit. So the reason his numbers are so great is he's a phenomenal transition player. Okay, he's above the 50th percentile in that. But among players who get a lot of possessions, which he's basically, this year he leads the league in possessions there, far and away. He gets 1.12 points per possession, which is great. You know what I mean? Because you got to put that in perspective. It's kind of like a free throw shooter who shoots 95% and gets to the line once a game, or 1.5 times a game on average, as opposed to a guy that shoots 70% from the line but gets there 9 times a game. That guy's shooting percentages are going to be a lot more efficient based on that. So Giannis is in transition so often, more than 25% of his possessions are in transition, that boosts his efficiency tremendously. That's not a half-court situation, but that's where he gets a lot of his I'm just telling you what he's great at, to kind of make up for the shortcomings in isolation. Post-up player, above 60th percentile, and a pick-and-roll player, he's great. So here's the thing. The thing is Giannis Antetokounmpo, well, he's not a type of dude who has a bag who can consistently win one-on-one. And if they sag off, they're going to make him shoot. Well, I would argue that he's a better shooter than before. I'd argue that, at least in the mid-range, he's just as good a shooter as a guy like LeBron James, who we don't question there. He's an improving three-point shooter. He's not a liability, especially as a spot-up shooter. As a spot-up shooter, he's actually pretty good. He's actually pretty good as a spot-up shooter. He's in the 58th percentile on 3 attempts a game. But we're talking about him with the ball in his hands, right? Last 5 minutes of the game, we throw it in your hands. You're going to bring us home. You're going to outplay Kawhi. You're going to outplay LeBron, whoever that is. So my thing is, it's a little bit limited to view him in that scope. First of all, he has the skill set to do it to me, but the numbers do say it's where he needs to improve the most in, despite his skill set. But I mean, I'd throw the ball to him in the low post down the stretch. I'd put him in pick and rolls down the stretch, and you can't argue there his production. Like, for example, as a post-up player, he's in a 60th percentile. And he's 12th in the league in possessions per game in the post, and he shoots 57% on a block. If he didn't turn the ball over, he's the only guy, even close to turning the ball over 20% of the time, and turnover, his frequency, he's turning the ball over 20% of the time he's in the post, which is terrible, right? But he still happens to be on top of that 60th percentile. If he limits those turnovers, he's already great on the block. He's shooting 50% on the block, and I showed you the bag. So left block, right block, okay. I mean, he may not be, cooking people with double. I mean, he can do it. I showed you, but he may, in your mind, you may not see him constantly cooking people with triple crossover step backs. Okay. But I'll throw it to him on a low block. That's where LeBron gets cooking a lot. And that's where he can really slow the game down and get what he wants down the stretch. And Giannis is an elite post-up player. Mid-post, low post, high post, back to the basket, face up. And that needs to be taken into account. And then last but not least, as a pick-and-roll player, as a ball handler, he's in the 94th percentile this season. All right, he gets 1.09 points per possession. He shoots about 50% in those situations. Now, it's only a shade under 7% of his total possessions. But if I was the Bucks, well, maybe not so much ISO, man. Hey, put him in pick and rolls and put him on the post, and he could take us down the stretch just fine. As last season, his first MVP, 2018-19, he was 97th percentile as a ball handler. Okay? And as a roller, you could say the same thing. I mean, this season, he's just about 70th percentile, and he's great as a roller as well. So, in conclusion, Giannis Antetokounmpo is an extremely skilled player, but he's especially great in terms of the half court on the low block and the pick and roll. So maybe we're a little bit misguided. And I've seen people on social media compare. I mean, you can't. He's 7 feet tall. There's it's not as easy as it seems. You can't compare him to 6'3", 6'5" guards and expect him to do that. It's not so easy to do this at 7 feet. If not, everybody would do it. And we talked about him as a defender as well. Not every 7-footer is defending like that in all NBA first team. And not every 7-footer is getting 6 assists a game and in the 95th percentile in pick and rolls while being one of the best low post threats in the world, while being a monster in transition, while having a Euro step and a full spin move and a half spin move. While being able to cross up Jason Tatum and blow by him like we showed you in this video. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, man, is I will cede to the fact that he can improve as an isolation player and just flat out one-on-one. The numbers say that he's okay. He's not great. Maybe not as great as like a Kevin Durant, a Kawhi Leonard, and a few other guys. Amongst those elite guys, he's toward the bottom. But look at the low post numbers against those guys. That's an isolation too. NBA.com stats just splits them, but that's an ISO too. I'll put him on a block, and he'll take me home. I'll put him in a pick and roll, and he'll more than take me home based on these numbers. The Bucks need to do that more. But anyway, but the dude's bag is just heavy, man. It's just anybody who doesn't think he's very skilled, or at least, if not the most skilled player at his position, is smoking something. But that's that, man. Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's my breakdown of his skill set and a conversation around his skill set, and we'll go from there.